So here's something unexpected. The next iPad Pro might be more than a mere spec update because it's coming with a groundbreaking upgrades to front-facing cameras. Yep, according to Mark Gurman at Bloomberg, Apple's planning to include both a portrait and landscape front-facing camera on the M5 iPad Pro. Not two on the back, two on the front. Why? So you can take video calls or selfies no matter how you're holding the iPads, without needing to awkwardly rotate the device. Though I'm gonna be honest guys, how many people were asking for this? Was the single landscape camera really that big of an issue on the current iPads? I mean, the landscape camera right now does feature center stage, which keeps you centered at all times, so I'm a bit puzzled at why Apple's even bothering doing this. It seems like Apple's desperately trying to scramble for some sort of big upgrade with this M5 model, but not to worry, because while this might be a simple chip refresh, new reports out of Korea and China do suggest Apple's quietly setting the stage for something much bigger. We're talking about major supply chain shifts, new OLED panel strategies, and early work on display technology that could eventually lead to thinner bezels and even foldable iPads. The M5 chipset will be the headline this year, but the real story is what Apple's working behind the scenes, and today we're breaking it all down, guys. Let's start with what's most concrete. According to Mark Gurman, the next-gen iPad Pro is set to launch as soon as October. That lines up pretty well with Apple's past patterns. We saw iPad Pro models drop in October in both 2018 and 2022. The most recent refresh was in May 2024, so we're looking at a 17-month gap, which fits Apple's roughly 18-month iPad Pro cycle. Now don't expect fireworks with this model. I mean, I was just talking about a secondary camera, some sort of massive change, so that should tell you how minor of a refresh this will be. The current iPad Pro, the one that dropped early in 2024, was already a massive leap forwards. You got a redesigned chassis, OLED displays, better color accuracy, deeper blacks, the works. So this upcoming model, yeah, it's mostly a spec refresh, but it is slightly more interesting than typical spec refreshes because this will introduce the brand new M5 chipset. The M5 is expected to be built on TSMC's N3P process, their third generation 3nm nodes. That means better performance and better power efficiency over the M4. Now if you're thinking, wasn't the M4 already really good? You'd be right, the M4 is ridiculously fast for a tablet, even overkill for most users, but with iPadOS 26 giving you real multitasking changes that will now let you take advantage of the performance these chipsets have, I'm sure there are going to be those who appreciate the better performance, even if they make up a very small percentage of iPad users. We'll probably see the standard 20% year-over-year gain, and most users won't feel that performance boost unless you're doing serious video editing or running a bunch of pro applications, but I won't complain that Apple's making their products faster. But here's the thing, even if the design isn't changing, Apple's actively preparing for big display innovations in the years ahead, and it's already starting to show in their supply chain decisions. According to a new report from ZNet Korea, both Samsung Display and LG Display have begun mass production of OLED panels for this upcoming iPad Pro. That's different from last year when Samsung handled only the 11-inch panels and LG supplied the 13-inch ones. This time they're sharing duties on both sizes. Why the shift, you may ask? It's about supply chain diversification. Apple doesn't want to rely on a single supplier anymore, especially with OLED displays set to expand across the iPad range in the coming years. We've already heard reports about OLED coming to the iPad mini in 2026 and the iPad Air in 2027. I know it's odd, by the way, that rumors are saying the mini would get OLED before the Air. How does it make sense a cheaper iPad gets OLED before the more expensive model? I expect that to be wrong, but one thing we can be sure about is OLED expanding across the range. And by bringing LG and Samsung into shared production now, Apple's both hedging its bets and building skill for that wider OLED rollout. Now let's pause here for a second. If you're enjoying this deep dive and want more Apple content like this, consider hitting that subscribe button. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers, and every single one helps us push closer to that goal. It's free, and it means you won't miss any of the latest Apple news, leaks, or reviews. Alright, back to the iPads. Here's where things get even more interesting. Earlier this week, reports surfaced that Apple's considering using LG's chip-on-film or COF display technology for future iPad Pro models. Now that might not sound very exciting, but this little change could result in much slimmer bezels and more compact designs without sacrificing screen size. Let me break it down. COF lets manufacturers attach display driver chipsets directly to the screen using heat compression on a flexible film. These chips are what controls the pixels, and this new method allows them to be placed closer to the screen's edge. Less dead space means thinner bezels, which means you get more screen with the same sized iPad. In fact, a source on Weibo called Instant Digital, who's accurately predicted Apple's moves before, claims the bezels on the upcoming iPad Pro models could rival those of Samsung's Galaxy S10 Ultra, which is seriously thin. This shift wouldn't just be about aesthetics either. The CF technology could potentially lead to more efficient signal processing, which in turn could mean better battery life. Though knowing that Apple's strictly stuck to 10 hours of endurance on all iPads since the OG model, I doubt we're going to see any meaningful improvement to the endurance, but hey, the battery life might be slightly better. Now, do I think this change will apply to the M5 iPad Pro? I don't think so. I know people would love to see slimmer bezels and even bigger displays on the iPads, but do remember that we just got a redesign with the M4 model and those already did get slightly slimmer bezels. I don't think Apple would give us any design tweaks just yet. Apple doesn't redesign their iPads very often, so expect slimmer bezels for the model after, at least that's my assumption, and Leak Instant Digital seems to agree as well. What we can expect with the M5 iPad Pro is maybe RAM getting an upgrade to 16 gigs by default, especially since the M4 MacBook Air starts with that now, and maybe you could see Wi-Fi 7 support, which would be great for future-proofing if you're investing in an iPad you're going to use for 3 to 5 years. But aside from that, there's nothing much. I wouldn't expect new colors considering Apple refuses to bring any fun colors to the iPad Pro, just space black and silver once again. But while this year's model might feel iterative, they are setting the stage for something bigger on the horizon. We have news about foldables. Yeah, the rumors are heating up, guys. Apple's reportedly working on foldable iPad Pro prototypes with up to 18.8-inch panels. That would make them bigger than the 16-inch MacBook Pro when unfolded. We don't know the exact fold type yet, vertical like a book or horizontal like a laptop, but what's clear is that Apple sees the foldable iPads as a future category, and they're not rushing it, they're building up the supply and manufacturing experience to do it right, and you've got a roadmap that's quietly but clearly aiming for a whole new class of products by the end of the decade. I know that sounds like hyperbole, but foldable iPads that also have cellular connection could genuinely be groundbreaking. So back to the present, should you buy the M5 iPad Pro? Well, if you already own the M4 model, I'd say definitely no. The M4 is still powerful, the OLED display is amazing, you're not missing anything except maybe slightly better power efficiency, but if you have an M1 iPad Pro or older, especially one without OLED, then the M5 is going to be a massive leap forwards, better display, thinner body, and a faster chipset. That said, here's what I would recommend, guys. Wait until the M5 drops and then grab the M4 for a discount. Apple may not cut prices, but third-party sellers absolutely will, and with how little this year's model's changing, the M4 is going to be the sweet spot for value, especially with bigger changes on the horizon. You might as well save your cash right now and go with a very similar M4 model for less, and save up for the foldable iPad in the future. So yes, 2025's iPad Pro refresh might not be flashy, but what's next could be huge. Think ultra-thin displays, COF tech, foldables, custom modems, and finally an iPad that breaks out of the yearly refresh treadmill. Until then, we're getting the M5 iPad Pro in a very familiar shell, but if Apple keeps the price the same while giving us better performance, I'm not complaining. Let me know your thoughts in the comments though, guys. Will you be upgrading to the M5, holding on to the M4, or waiting for the foldable iPad revolution? And before you go, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. More Apple leaks, news, and reviews coming your way, and I'd love to have you along the ride. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.